passing lane. Sky's a jam. Dynamite dunk and the crowd loves it.
Welcome back to Pistons Intellect, your home for the most informed Detroit Pistons news and analysis. I'm your host, Jack Kelly. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack_Kelly_3on3. And before we get into today's show, if you're feeling so kind, please hit that subscribe button. Today, we'll be reviewing the Detroit Pistons 101-110 loss to the Portland Trail Blazers. Let's get to it. Before I get into a few of the players and a few of the areas that were disappointing tonight, I think it's kind of worth noting just how bad this loss was, and there's plenty of reasons why the Pistons dropped tonight. They were without Jalen Duren with an ankle injury. Alec Burks was also out, so two very key guys, arguably two of the Pistons' three best players through the first 4 to 5 games of the season. But considering the Portland Trail Blazers came into the night 1-3, they started the season 0-3, and a rebuilding team, probably a year or two behind the Pistons, to drop this game at home on your home floor when you had a lead as big as 18 points in the second quarter and 15 points throughout the third quarter. It's just really disappointing. And the Pistons now travel to New Orleans, who are 3-1 on the second night of a back-to-back, and they do so with Cade Cunningham, who's played high 30 minutes tonight and looked a little bit gassed at points. So just a really disappointing loss, and one, it's still very early in the season, but that's a game that if the Pistons are going to make a leap in the standings and win 30 to 35 games or more, you have to beat those teams that are going to finish around the bottom of the league. And they faltered tonight, and that's one they'll be really, I don't think it'll hurt them long term, obviously, but just in the short term, that's a game that the Pistons need to learn from instead of looking back and regretting. So I think the first area I want to get into that was kind of glaring to me, and to be honest has been kind of glaring for the most part, I think some solid defense overall has sort of covered up this issue, but the starting lineup with featuring Killian Hayes and Asar Thompson alongside Cade, Stu, and insert center, whether it's Duran or Bagley, I just don't think it works. I don't even think we have to pull up the advanced numbers. They're bad. I know Duran was out tonight, but I really think it's time to change. I mentioned in my last video that if the Pistons did lose to the Trailblazers, I think it could be time to make a change. I know Burks was out tonight, so if he seems like the guy that would be thrown into the starting five, just based off that we saw that in the preseason, and I feel like Coach Monty Williams would want to throw a veteran in to help space the floor. But just Killian Hayes tonight, I really don't want to make this fully about him, but he unfortunately just had his worst game of the season and of the preseason. He'd been solid to date, still struggling to shoot, but he'd still made plays and found a way to score in that mid-range. But tonight he was 0 of 6, didn't score. He did some other Killian Hayes things, like had some steals, had some nice defensive moments, but yeah, 0 of 6, just unfortunately for Killian, it kind of always comes back to this where he can't get to the rim and finish, he can't hit threes, teams don't respect him, and particularly alongside Cade, who needs spacing in the backcourt, I don't know. Coach Monty Williams knows what he's doing. He's doing this for a reason, but it just doesn't make any sense to me to keep playing Killian at that starting 2 or 1 position, especially just because tonight it just looked like he lost his confidence. He even had a fast break where, he had 3 Portland Trailblazers trailing him, pun not intended, but he just, I don't know, he got blocked and came off his leg and went out of bounds, and that just sort of summed up his night. And I think, it's time to either start Alec Burks or a guy who played really well tonight on the positive side of things is Marcus Sasser. He had 8 points, 6 assists and 4 steals was aggressive. He was getting into the paint, hit a couple of floaters, got to the rim, had some nice passes to the bigs for finishes, and then also had passes out to the corner off drives to open shooters. Hit Joe Harris a couple of times, and then 4 steals and a block down the other end. Held his own more than not on the defensive end. He's a little bit undersized, but if you're able to disrupt and create deflections like he is and move your feet like he is, I think there's a case to be made. Maybe you put him in the starting lineup just in the short term while he's playing well, just until Bojan or the next guy I'm going to get to gets some run in the starting lineup. But Marcus Sasser played really well tonight, and he's played well in the minutes he's gotten for the most part, especially for a rookie this early in the season. So he's a guy who you could throw into the starting lineup, even if it's just for the next tomorrow to see how he goes against the Pelicans. I don't expect it to happen. Then there's Jaden Ivey, who didn't have the best game tonight. He had made some nice plays, made some nice defensive plays. He finished with the 10 points in around 20 minutes. But yeah, in my opinion, he should be starting. I feel like I've said this every show, but he should be starting. You drafted him to play alongside Cade. I understand what Monty Williams is trying to do, and I completely respect that. And I think you've seen some of the dividends pay off from some of his efforts defensively. But I mean, I also think that's something that could have been drilled into him as a starter, and you pull him early if his effort's not there on the defensive end. But anyway, I'm not here to argue with Monty Williams and his decisions, because the Pistons have been competitive for the most part. But I think he just complements Cade so well with his change of pace. You mean he had a couple of drives tonight where he just blew by the first line of defense with his first step. If Jaden's not going to start, I think he should be playing more than 20 to 22 minutes a night. I think he should be hovering around that 27, 28, even if he's coming off the bench. Unless he's really forcing it and having those kind of turnovers where he's driving without much of a plan and throwing jump passes to the opposition and creating turnovers, unless he's doing those kinds of things, like, I really think he should be up to the mid to high 20s in minutes at least. You could tell down the stretch, and I'm going to get to Cade at some point in this show, but Cade was just gassed down the stretch, and Jaden did play some minutes in the fourth, but you could tell he just needed someone to take the pressure off him. Cade was sort of forcing some tough shots and obviously had some turnovers, and I just feel like if Jaden was out there, he might be able to get something going, whether it's getting to his mid-range game or just getting to the free throw line. Jaden's obviously more adept at getting there right now than Cade, and that's a whole nother thing we can talk about with Cade is the free throws. But yeah, if Jaden's not going to start, he needs to play more minutes, in my opinion, and I'll be interested to see how that eventuates tomorrow against the Pelicans, and then especially over the weekend against the Phoenix Suns and Golden State Warriors. But look, ultimately, I think it's time. I think Killian has shown flashes, but overall, the numbers have been against him in the starting lineup, or especially with him and Asar in the starting lineup. So I think Asar has played amazing. I don't think he needs to go to the bench. I think his positional defense is crucial to this starting lineup, and you need someone like him on the wing to help rebound and everything. I think what he brings is more important to this Pistons team right now, and unfortunately that means Killian Hayes, I think, he's the odd man out and should either be replaced with Alec Burks, Marcus Sasser, or, I mean, I'd like to see Jaden Ivey, but if Jaden Ivey's going to continue to come off the bench, one of those two aforementioned players. So really, really going to be keen to see the starting lineup and overall rotation tomorrow night. All right, so moving on, the next player I wanted to talk about was Cade Cunningham. It was an up and down game for Cade. He came out and he hit the 3 threes in the first quarter, had 14 at halftime, was finding teammates, playing at his usual pace and kind of controlling the game. Had the Pistons up 18 and everything looked awesome. He had a couple of those sort of Cade-like turnovers in the first half, but the way he was playing, it didn't matter. And then the second half came around, and once again, he still had the 16 second half points, but it was that last quarter in particular where I think Pistons fans, for probably the first time I've really seen, really, at least on Twitter, which is not everybody obviously, but it's the first time I've seen the fan base kind of really on Cade in terms of his performance and it leading to the Pistons losing. He had in the last quarter 9 points, but it came on 3 of 11 shooting, and he also had those 3 turnovers, and honestly it felt like more, just with some of the decisions he made. I don't know. I'm not by any means worried about Cade. He's averaging, I believe, a league high 5.5 turnovers per game. He's close to 1 assist to 1 turnover ratio, which is really bad, especially if you're a lead point guard, your lead decision maker. You don't want a guy as high usage as Cade turning it over as often as he's dishing assists. So the turnovers are clearly an issue. But overall, I'm not concerned yet. We're 5 games in. If you remember last season, Cade's first 4 or 5 games, he was struggling. I think he scored maybe 20 points once. He was under 20 in the others, turning it over. Similar thing, the Pistons were like 1-5 in his first 5, 1-4 in his first 5 games. So look, he's a bit of a slow burn. He's been out for a year. You can tell he looked gas in that last quarter, and the way he brings the ball up the floor, he generally does it in a slow pace, but he just looked extra gas. I will say in his defense, some of those fouls that Shaedon Sharpe was getting on the other end, I'd like to see Cade get on his drives. He's getting bumped or getting contact from the side. Shaedon Sharpe got those every time, and Cade did not get one. So, I mean, there's frustration there, and when you feel like you're driving and you're getting bumped and you're not getting the foul call, you're missing the shot, it takes it out of you mentally and physically. It's draining. It's hard. You got big bodies crashing into you. He even got poked in the eye by DeAndre Ayton at one point, no foul. So, look, I think it was a combination of Cade being a little tired. Yes, some of those turnovers were careless. Yes, some of his shots probably a bit rushed. Considering how well he was shooting the ball, I honestly didn't mind some of the early shot clock threes and mid-range shots because, I mean, he's still shooting those really well. He's shooting the 3 ball at a 44% clip. So I don't mind him shooting them early in the shot clock, but it did just feel like he's a bit out of rhythm in that last 6 to 7 minutes of the fourth. And yeah, I can understand why fans are frustrated. As I said, the Pistons should have won that game, and it felt like Cade had a hand in a lot of those key turnovers and possessions where the Pistons just couldn't score. But, I mean, I don't think it's worth kind of some of the comments I saw flying around on social media. I think some people, I get it in the heat of the moment. It's very frustrating. I'm only watching the game on replay, so I know the outcome, the results set. I know what to expect, so it's easier for me to come and watch with a more level head. But yeah, I think he made some bad decisions. He missed a very easy left-handed layup, which would have tied the game back up or brought the Pistons back within 1 with a few minutes to play. So that's another key moment he sort of missed out on. So plenty to improve upon. And the one area, I mean, we spoke about turnovers, but the one area I'm probably more concerned with Cade and is his finishing around the basket. So per NBA.com, within 5 feet of the rim, he's shooting 37%, which is diabolical. That's incredibly low, especially, I mean, guards are never going to probably get, guards with Cade's athleticism are probably never going to be amazing finished at the rim, just because it's hard to finish at the rim over bigger guys if you're not a huge athletic kind of guy that can get above the rim. But on 6.5 attempts to be shooting 37% basically at the rim is really bad. And I feel like tonight against Portland, he sort of rushed some of those looks and they just had a bit too much power on them and they hit the glass a bit hard or took like a tough spin kind of layup, almost searching for contact. And look, probably this percentage is a touch lower because he's not getting those foul calls. So they obviously, you think you're getting fouled, you miss the layup, they go down as a missed attempt. But I think that's an area he needs to improve upon, whether that's kind of not taking as many tough shots at the rim, or just trying to play with a slower pace and use pump fakes more. I think Cade does that well already, but that's definitely an area he's got to improve. Like missing that left-handed layup, I don't want to get on it too much, but just those kind of touch and feel around the rim just doesn't seem to be as good for Cade as it is in the mid-range and on the jumper right now. So I think that's an area he's really got to make some strides in to improve as a scorer. We can talk about the lack of free throws, but if we think Cade's going to be that 25 to 30 point a game scorer, I think his shooting around the rim's got to get better. So look, all in all, it's weird because it was a 30-point game for Cade. It was the second of the season for him and fifth of his career. So he's already had 2 30 pieces in close losses. I think the thing for me I've noticed in both those games is it came on a heap of shot attempts, around 27, 28 attempts in each game he scored 30. So I think what that's telling me is that Pistons are relying on him heavily, especially in these close games that he's shooting 30 to bring them home, and he's doing a lot of it by himself. He did that against Miami, and he did that tonight against the Blazers, where he's just trying to get these shots going in the mid-range. I think in both quarters he shot, both last quarters against the Heat and Portland, he shot well below 45% from the field. So he's trying to will the Pistons to victory by himself. I think this is where you need to throw Jaden Ivey in, or Monte Morris when he's healthy, someone that can support him down the stretch as a ball handler, as opposed to a non-threat. But they had Marcus Sasser in tonight, but he's a rookie. So, look, I'm not concerned with Cade. I get the frustration. I was a little bit surprised to see some of the shots he missed and some of the decisions he made, but there's no reason to be concerned. Cade is fine, and I think tomorrow will be very interesting to see how he bounces back against the Pelicans, because he's kind of had, in the 5 games, he's had one good game, and then he's had a subpar game, then he's had a good game, subpar game, good game. So it'd be interesting to see how he goes tomorrow night, see if he can string together a couple of nice performances. The final player I want to have a chat about was Isaiah Stewart, and I want to do so in more of a broad sense and recap of the early season for him so far. So he was once again tonight, I thought, really solid. He had 12 points. He had a +3, +-, and he dished 4 assists. So the passing for him has been something that's been a slight improvement. The only thing that limited him tonight was foul trouble. He did have a turnover, a crucial one in the last quarter where he travelled. And look, it looked like he got fouled on that wide open dunk in transition, but he probably should have at least made that. But hard to say, hard when you're getting fouled. So, but he had a really solid game. But just overall in the season, he's been, when you look at the numbers, the advanced numbers, he's been the most impactful starter in terms of, if any lineup featuring Stu is plus 0.82 net rating combined. So when he's on the floor, the Pistons are a plus 8.2 points per 100 possessions. So the next highest starter on the list is Jalen Duren, who's only plus 0.5. So Stu is playing a career high 33 minutes, and he's having a huge impact. And I haven't even gotten to his counting stats yet, where, once again, career high in points with 13 a game, career high in assists, 1.5. And he's still hauling in 8 rebounds from the 4 position. And then this has been probably the biggest improvement for him, is the efficiency thus far. He's shooting 51% from the field, which, considering he's playing at the 4 and more of a perimeter-based game, is really good. And then the 3-point shot, 44% on 3.5 looks, has just been outstanding so far. We've seen him utilise pump fakes and step to the side to make some threes. Most of them have been catch and shoot, but he's just been excellent so far. And I think the number that I'm going to list out to you that gets me the most excited long term, and I mean, I've seen a lot of people talking about who can the Pistons find for the 4 position, and I've even had people DMing me about trades, and I get that. I can see why people still want to upgrade that position, but I mean, when you look at this 3-man lineup of featuring Cade, Stu and JD, they are plus 10 right now. So any lineup with those 3 on the floor is plus 10 per 100 possessions. So they're defending well, and then they're making things happen offensively. And I mean, I think that front court of Stu and Duran, if Stu can just get that 3 ball, if he could get that to 37-38% on around 5 to 6 attempts per game, that's when I don't think a trade is needed in the future. He's still got a long way to go to get to that, but defensively, Stu and Duran look amazing together. There's a ton of versatility. The rebounding, I think they'd be the best rebounding duo in the league. They're extremely physical. They're extremely big. They've both got huge wingspans. Like, those two allow you to have guys on the perimeter that probably aren't amazing defenders. They allow players like Cade to sort of, if they get blown by or something like that, to have those two at the back line protecting the rim and cleaning up messes. Like, even it allows Asar Thompson to play extremely aggressive and go for those deflections and go for those help side, weak side blocks and just fly around everywhere, because those two can stabilize everything else. So Isaiah Stewart has really started the season extremely well, and as long as he can stay healthy and relatively consistent with the 3-point shot, I mean, yeah, it's just been really outstanding. I don't expect him to shoot 44% for the rest of the season. If he did, that would be incredible. If he just can keep it to around 36%, if he can stay around 36% from 3, that is a huge win and a very good result for this Pistons core, because him and Jalen Duran defensively have just been impeccable. So just wanted to give Stu a shout out, because we talk about a lot his sort of the physicality and the leadership and that kind of thing, but I think a lot of people have had him long term as that backup big off the bench, and that's still a very high possibility. And Stu needs to do a lot more than just play 5 really good games, but I think you kind of can see so far the vision that Troy Weaver has with the way Stu has played. And yeah, once again, I thought he was excellent tonight, and the team just defensively just looks so much more imposing when he's out there. So hopefully Jalen Duran's back for the Pelicans game, and we can get to see these two on the court once together, because when they're together, the Pistons are a much better team. That'll do it for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Drop a comment below if there's anything you'd like to discuss, anything you disagree with I said, anything I've missed. Be really curious to hear who you guys think should be in the starting lineup. And finally, if you could hit that subscribe button. I want as many of you Pistons fans coming along for this 82-game journey with me as possible. We'll be back tomorrow night with a recap of hopefully a Pistons win over the Pelicans. But until then, go Pistons.